If I didn't care, oh, if I didn't care. I'll tell you something. I've gotten this amazing clarity from recent events, and it really simplifies things in life. And all the stuff that you spend your time worrying on, all the crap out there or whatever is gone. It's very weird, man. So I think with the red pill, people need to take it and open up their eyes. They need to see what life is for real, not the one that's sold to you, not the one the media creates for you, not the one these horrible politicians create for you. I don't care what continent you stand on. If you have someone over your head, they are controlling you. When it comes down to the explanation or the excuse, excuse for being you, how many of you out there find that you're making excuses for yourself to other people or trying to justify, like, yourself? It happens. It's happening now with people in your business. It used to be your medical business was yours between you and your healthcare provider. Now people want to get up in your face and they want to know automatically if you're vaccinated or not, or this, that, and the other thing, whatever, man. I mean, you know, what happened to my body, my choice? I guess that doesn't go for some things. I'm all into mitigating the spread of COVID. I work very hard to do it, and I think that people need to be smart about things and not ignorant, and make informed decisions. Just don't go by what the media says or what politicians say. You have to go by knowledge, and also media politicians and doctor politicians. You got to be very careful. So do your research, look things up, ask questions of informed people. Don't listen to the idiot next door. Don't listen to the idiot across the street. Don't listen to the idiot on the box. Don't even listen to me. You go out there, you do your own thing. And you want a chance for survival? It'll give you a chance for survival if you happen to get COVID-19, right? A better chance than what you have now. But is it anyone's business? No. The government can't even order the vaccination upon the public because it's an emergency use drug, and Congress would have to get together and try to push something like that through, and they would never be able to do it. So, but private industry is getting away with it, and now it's starting to be challenged. I'm seeing court cases pop up where people were told, you don't get vaccinated, you lose your job. It's a threat from a private corporation. And if the government doesn't have the right to force you to get vaccinated, the private corporation doesn't have the right to force you to get vaccinated. Although the naysayers will say, well, if you don't want it, then you quit. Is that really? I mean, your livelihood is your life. You mess with someone's livelihood, you're messing with their life. So interesting what's going on. I'm just sitting back watching it. I'm well informed on all these subjects, and when I hear people misspeak, as some people make things up as they go along. You know, I listen to other shows and whatever, and they make things up. They don't even know what they're talking about at all, and zero, zilch, or they're listening to these hardcore agenda-based websites that really they're out there just to drive a nail in people's foreheads. They don't base themselves in science. They're not basing what they say in science. So when you want real answers, you look to the real people that will provide those answers, and get educated. Once you have that education, you make your informed decision. I know a lot of people who are elderly, who have the vaccination, who are psyched. They think that they have a great level of protection. They have a level of protection, right? Younger people, it depends on how it affects them. And, but also at the same time, you're trying to stop the spread of this virus. And now it's kicked into a higher gear with the so-called Delta variant, which is the Indian variant. India sued to get their name off it. Nobody wants to have their name attached to it, I guess. But that's where it came from. And if you want to talk about, the conditions there, or what drives viruses to become worse, I mean, there's a word called responsibility. if you don't have it as an individual, there's no way that you can govern over others and show responsibility for them. The leader of India 8 weeks ago declared the war on COVID 19 was over. They had beaten the virus, they had gotten to herd immunity, they had vaccinated a good portion of their society, not even 8%, by the way, a good portion of the 1.3 billion people that are there. But yada, yada, yada. And now look at India. There, I just saw a spike today in the thousands. You know, I mean, the whole world is starting to get swept by this Indian variant. UK is now responsible for 77% of all new infections. And then only a small percentage of their people have been properly vaccinated, right? And I say properly vaccinated because, even in the early days of the vaccination, when they were doing it like just a few weeks apart, and they realized they should be further for the two shots, then Johnson came out with the one shot. A lot of people jumped on that. It depends on what your flavor is and what you believe in. If you believe it's going to help you or not, you know, uh, what's more effective. I mean, in my travels and the things that I do, I know that Moderna is the one holding strong. I'm not advertising for Moderna, that's for sure. But what I'm doing is making informed choices from the data that's available, not from Dr. Fauci, not from, Joe Biden, or what, not from any one of them. It's not that they don't know anything. It's just that they don't have a vested interest in telling the truth. That's the problem. They don't have a vested interest in telling the truth. Those people have no responsibility for you, right? And then, look at Fauci. His emails got raided. Then there it is, in the early days when we all know, anybody who knew anything about anything, especially in the world of epidemiology, knew that this virus came from that Wuhan lab. Of course, all the media played it down. They played it down because the media has a horrible, horrible defiance disorder to Donald Trump. And anything that dude said, they had to flip on it and be the exact opposite. And it was ridiculous, ludicrous what was going on. What it did, it showed everybody out there what the mainstream media is made of on both sides. You have your Fox. Have you ever watched Fox? Have you ever watched the people on there? I don't even know who really is influenced, or it's not receiving information. You're not getting information from them. You're getting direction, and it just, do this, right? Watch an hour of that. Look at CNN or Fox, doesn't matter who, for an hour, right? Commercials included. See how you feel afterwards. Shut it off and see how you feel. Do you feel good? You feel good about the world? You feel good about yourself? You feel settled, or do you feel like you've just been fed a whole bunch of hate, anger, and just information designed to frustrate and upset people, right? To take you to a point where you're not even functioning. Because I know people out there that harp on this stuff. They can't sleep at night. I'm like, turn the TV off, you know? Turn the TV. Worst thing to do is fall asleep with the TV on, man. You wake up one of those horrible infomercials, and all of a sudden you want to buy stuff. Buy it now. Act now. You get the second one for free. Woohoo! Right? I'm a pasta maker or something. Remember that dude Ronco? He came out a pasta maker. How many people bought that pasta maker for a couple $100 and stuck it under their shelf, thinking they were going to make pasta? 90% of people buy stuff like that, just shove it under the shelf, juicer or whatever. I know people that found juicers in their houses they didn't even know they had. They're like, where did this come from? Exercise equipment's another one. Because at 4 o'clock in the morning, it all sounds good, especially if you're messed up. Then you got a long night. You're feeling it like, oh, damn, even religion. That's why they put it on 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, so people can repent. Give me $20 and repent. These guys with the big $1 million gold watches and the mansions and the G5 aircraft peddling Jesus. Repent, repent. Oh, come on, man. It really comes down to this. People, some of them, like to be controlled. They are complacent. They let the government do what they do. They sit there like well trained piglets, right? And will do and snap to whatever. Americans aren't like that. For the just like if I'm going to compare countries, Americans, people I know will stand up to you. You know, will question authority and have a real interest in their own personal survival when it comes to any kind of intrusion from outside forces, right? They work hard, they pay their taxes, they have responsibility for themselves and their families, right? They drive over roads that are full of potholes and broken up because that city can't control what they do themselves. They don't care. You know, they take the money, spend it on other stuff. You know, like in New York, you know, where you're going to drive through the worst roads you'll ever see, right? You could drive from any other state around New York. You wouldn't even know, like, nice road, you're in another state and cross right over into New York. You know it. You could be blindfolded because the road turns to pure poop. But why is it like that? It's like that because tax money that goes for the roads gets appropriated for other stuff. And they use it, or they'd rather hire lawyers to fight off, you know, illegal aliens who have committed crimes who are going to get deported. This the games that they play. It's games, you know, and people are tired of it. So you know, Trump comes along. He played people's emotions. He knew exactly what to say and who to say it to, and he wasn't too far off. But he took the knowledge and used it for other things and inciting anger instead of bringing people together. If you are going to fight a war, the last thing you need is to have everyone who needs to be together divided. So, but if you're being attacked from the attacker, of course they want to divide you. They want people divided and fighting amongst themselves because you're too busy doing that and not finding out anything else, not looking out there and saying, you know, why is this really happening? Uh, you know, why is it a joke that these politicians lie? Everything they say is a lie, and you can't trust any of them, but they're the ones running the system. Why is it like that? And these questions need to be answered. So unfortunately, the ones who would answer them won't because they're the ones in charge, right? You who's fighting, maybe with your neighbor, maybe with your boss, maybe with the person down the block or people in your family over politics. It never used to be a thing. People had their views and opinions. You know, before the cell phone, before the internet, people weren't dogged by people's views and opinions. And what happened at the office place was just chatter around the water cooler. Didn't go too far past that. Now it follows you home. It follows you down the road. It's in your car. It's everywhere. Everywhere you look, you're bombarded by it, right? Social media. Social media. You know something? The best thing for humanity around the world right now would be for every cell phone just to explode, man, just to die, because it has put people in a stressful, horrible place, an in demand world that you cannot escape from. If you shut that stupid thing off, you get chastised from others. God forbid if you're in a relationship and you don't answer a text fast enough. It used to be you had your own time and you could take that time and do anything with it. You could sit there in the bathtub and fart and think it's a jacuzzi. It's your business. Nobody cared. It wasn't advertised. It wasn't out there. But now the word advertising, you know, it's just embedded into everything. I can't even watch television because of the obnoxious ads that they play. And they understate men and they overstate women. You know, how often do you see women in these ads wrenching on some supercar, you know, like, you know, wrenching on a turbo, and but at the same time they're baking cookies, and then they're vacuuming the house, and they don't show a dude around. They show the strong, independent woman who's doing all these things, and you have a very, 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 very small fraction of people who are like that. But if you're going to show a generalization, that's not it. That's not it. And I don't like the sentiment of, yeah, I mean, there are single moms. My mom was a single mom. Guess what? She sacrificed everything for her kids. She worked her ass off. She worked two jobs all her life to make a nice home for my sister and I. And, she never asked for anything from anyone. She had a responsibility. She didn't look to the government to assist her. She didn't do any of that. The men in her life failed her miserably. So you just march on, you move on, you do your thing. Right now, everybody's offended by everything. Nobody has responsibility for themselves. They think they can just go off the hook anytime they want, and then it's acceptable. Especially if you are some other gender bender, whatever, man. What do you call them? Like people who are transsexuals, homosexuals and whatever for a long time, and still they got knocked around. People didn't accept them, right? But now there's the oversteer in society where people are kind of putting it out there so much, it's turning others off. And you don't have to convince people out there to accept something. It's up to them to accept something or not. I'm happy with anyone who is cool. Anyone who is not cool, I am not happy with. I have plenty of friends who are all kinds and types and whatever. I don't look at them like that, though. I look at them as just people, man. They're just people. So 3.4% of the United States identifies as homosexual. 1.3% identify as transsexual. That's a very, very small number of people to really put things out there so big and so much that the very action of what these media people are doing is hurting the movement and hurting people, and they don't care because they're doing it as a price tag on it, the politically correct price tag that they stick on there. They don't care. Just like well, man, how many elements of the Democratic Party that were guilty from saying all this stuff about other people, the Republicans and whatever about Trump, but then they themselves do it. They do it themselves, and they have no excuse for that. Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York still hasn't stepped down. Sexual allegations against him and whatever. But isn't it funny that there's a men's rights movement out there that looks at that and says, did he really do anything so inappropriate that he needed to resign? Eliot Spitzer was governor of New York, had sex with hookers on many occasions, right? Detailed accounts in the media. He stepped down. He thought that his actions were not justified, and of course he's the governor of New York, and you're supposed to be the first citizen of New York. Whatever, man. Cuomo's not stepping down. As a matter of fact, he defied them. So this is all a chunk of that Me Too movement. Another knee-jerk overstretch of something that is essentially important. Rape is important. Molestation is important. Crimes, sexual crimes against anybody is important. But there's a degree of, well, if you ask someone out, I mean, I've heard all kinds of stories about a guy who asked a girl out in front of other people, and she felt sexually harassed because he asked her out in front of her friends, and they all laughed at him. Imagine a poor guy, and he gets it hard enough to get it up inside yourself to go up to somebody and ask them out, especially when you're young. It's a very tender time for a male, but and then drag it on social media. And then put the guy out there. That's why people commit suicide, because they get dogged on social media and they can't take the embarrassment. Man, it's crazy, I grew up with a very low opinion of myself, and there was nowhere else to go but up. I grew up around two psychomaniacs. My father, who didn't live with us, thank God, and then my grandmother's husband, who threatened to kill us in our sleep. And my mom also working those two jobs was paying them rent, paying my grandmother even to babysit me, that type of thing, until she could move us out of there. You know, when you grow up and you absorb these types of things, you either become weak or strong. It could drive you into a corner and you can let life beat on you, or you can stand up and fight back. And that's the daily battle, is that fighting back. And that's the responsibility that you have to yourself. And those are the people that you want to lead you in society. And it's not leading, really. It's not dominating, which is what they try to do. It's representation, right? Representation. And you don't just charge people X amount of tax dollars and use that money for whatever you want to use it for, because it has to serve those people who put the money in the first place. And you take all these knee-jerk reactions and you start building things, or bathrooms for certain people, or whatever your this is and that is. Man, my teacher Timothy Whalen from high school, very wise man. You can find him on Facebook. We're friends today. He said this. He called this a long time ago in the early 80s, man. He called this. He said that basically, he put it out as a proposition. What would happen if everyone in the world that was offended by everything that there was placated? You couldn't possibly do it. You can't make everybody happy, because there's also people that are just unhappy to begin with. They're wishy-washy, back and forth, unhappy to begin with people, and then those people seek out happy people and destroy their lives. They're like parasites, man, where they just leech on to those people. And then you, who is the good person, you are the one who wants to make everyone around you happy. But if you can't, it's a constant effort that you'll never succeed in. It's a constant failure on your part, but it's not. It's not. The failure is having to worry about those people to begin with. You don't owe them anything. You're unto yourself in this world. You got your family around you. The people who are loyal to you, you're loyal to them. The ones who are not loyal to you, what do you have for them? I mean, that's the whole thing. Responsibility. So when I look out there in the world, I see a huge lack of it. I look at Canada, I mean, people in Canada are going to get mad. I really don't care. It really comes down to complacency and what you're willing to let the government do to you. They have no free speech in Canada. They can get hauled away for saying things. Now they're all stuck inside. They don't even go out because they say they can't. And I don't know. I see conflicting things. I think the ones who don't want to go out don't go out. I think that if you're part of your society, you certainly like in America, there's people getting jobs, and there's people who don't want to get a job. And I was without a job for a few months in the beginning of the pandemic. I can't even imagine what it feels like. I mean, I felt like a loser for those few months, and I had money coming in, but I felt like a total loser for those months because I wasn't producing, and I don't find value in myself. Like, I don't define myself in work, but I define myself in purpose. And I feel like I can't just do any job. I need to have a purpose. I have found the perfect thing that serves my purpose, which is awesome, right? But others, I see people out there who do nothing, but they criticize others all the time. They don't do their research on subjects or issues, and they make things up as they go along, and they criticize others. The people like that just frustrate me. And they're there. They laugh when they frustrate you because that's their aim. Their aim is to do that to you. You can't let them win. You can't let them do it to you. You don't let people stress you out. So I have a zero tolerance for BS. And the second you bring it to the table, you're gone. You're gone. And I don't hesitate, man. I mean, there's no time. Back in the day, I used to take a ton of crap, a ton of it. And you know what it does? It stresses you out. And then at the end of the day, this is what's going through your mind. Henry Rollins, right? You ever listen to his music, man? I want to pull it out. What was that line, man? I can't think straight right now. I love Henry Rollins. I've met him many times in the New York City club scene. You know, the guy came through these clubs, the Ritz, places like that, and really cool dude. I know his backstory. He used to be a manager of a Haagen-Dazs store in Philadelphia, man, and he got the opportunity to join a band called Black Flag, and he did it. You know, people told him not to do it, whatever. But I mean, there's one line in a song where basically it's about how sad and pathetic your life is if at the end of the day, all the stuff you're thinking about are stuff that other people said about you or to you or tried to pick you apart. You don't owe anyone anything but yourself. You are surviving in your own bones, right? But people will pick you apart, or you get into a relationship, and how many people out there try to change you in a relationship, or what happened with being in love with a person that you met. No, a lot of them just want a utility, and that utility, once it's used, they discard it, right? Or there's hypergamy of people in relationships always looking for something else. That's social media. How many out there have lost their relationships because of social media, because of access? But what does that say for the person, right? So back in the day, houses were sparse. People got together. The men were the hunters. The women out there, they gathered stuff. They fixed up the house and, whatever, berries, that type of thing. They had kids, and the women were the breach. They were the liaison between the kid and the man, because most men can't identify with little kids. Now, commercials greatly understate men. They make men look like either toxic masculine morons, or you know, these weak type of effeminate figures, or goofy and whatever. How about just a guy? Remember shows back in the late 70s, 80s? Happy Days, man. Happy Days was a show that depicted a family back in late 50s, early 60s, right? The father owned a hardware store. He did his business, went to work every day, supported his family. The mom was home, made the house, had kids, had a dude, the Fonz, renting out a room over the garage there or whatever, man. It was cool. He was cool. They were cool. It was about morals. They had moral structure. The TV show itself didn't preach disrespect, right? It preached a moral ground of what people's roles really are in this world, right? Now these roles have been fudged and changed, and then it's disturbing that it's very obvious what the media is trying to do and how they're trying to shape people, and then it works its way into the education system. How many teachers are out there preaching against whites or white privilege or whatever? When I hear that, I don't like it, and there's reasons for everything. And there's no undo button, and there's no magic wand. If you want to fix things in society that you think are broken, then you yourself should be making the effort to fix those things. Criticizing something doesn't fix something. If you're going to sit there and especially make up a bunch of things about people that you know nothing about. When I hear the whole white privilege rant, these people don't know many white people. A lot of white people don't know many black people, and so on and so on. People tend to keep to their groups. Then you have the bleed throughs, right? And I'll tell you, it's hard. I think if you're part of a group, or if you've been put into that group by the government, that they love to label people. They love to label people and play to those people that they labeled, right? But So what about you and your neighborhood? What about the safety of your neighborhood? What about the daily needs of the people in your neighborhood and in your town? What does that have to do? All the tax dollars you pay on top of that to a system, especially the bad areas, man, like high crime areas, and then they say they spend so much more on police in those areas, but then you have groups come along saying defund the police because you're spending more on police, but yet they're not doing any good. The problem is the crime, not the police. The police respond to the crime. It's not the other way around, you know. So what's causing the crime? Are people. The people causing the crime need to stop doing it. But there's no responsibility or accountability anymore, apparently, because now there's a bunch of excuses on why people do the things they're doing. Ooh, you see all the mass shootings going on? Yeah, another one in a supermarket in Florida. Little kid gets shot. People are wigging out. Do you know why? I have the magic answer because everybody keeps asking why. Because people for the last 4.5 years, a little more, have been driven into a frenzy of hate and anger by the media and the government. Those guys, the Democrats and Republicans and Trump, all going after each other. The media on one side or the other, playing the game, getting people geared up to fight a war with each other. They brought troops to D.C., stormed the Capitol. I saw all those fat guys trying to get through the window, Trump supporters. There's Trump supporters trying to get through. A couple of them had to need a hand. That was kind of, but it was allowed to happen. It was made to happen. It was allowed to happen. It was a contrived thing. And then they can say, well, look, it happened, right? And they harp on it. So put fences up. The Democrats put all those fences up, barbed wire fences. I thought they didn't believe in that stuff. What happened to no walls, right? So now they have to reverse flow. All the stuff they've said that they don't believe in really because they were fighting Trump and they were basically saying anything they could to do it. Now they have to have the reverse flow. The people that are out there that are so used to hating on a daily basis, they get out there and just gnarl on someone's jugular vein because they're so full of hate and anger. They got nothing to do now. Now they're like, I'm bored. I can't believe it. I got all this hate and anger and there's no one to direct it. Trump is gone. He went back into obscurity. You hear a little blib or a blurb. He'll probably appear at a NASCAR thing or something. You're going to hear a little this, a little that. But he's gone. Biden's up there. If you take Biden at face value, he is what he is. Isn't that an honest statement? Kamala Harris. And I'm not going to be a hater. I'll tell you something. These people are just part of the system. It's the system that I think needs to change, not the people. You can change the people. It's going to be the same way, the same game, the same lobbyists lobbying for the same piece of pie. And they don't want just a piece, they want the whole pie, and they want you to pay for it. And you do, happily and joyfully. Or you can go be free up in Canada. I like how these idiots are like, I'm going to Canada to be free. I know people up there, they're not free. They're under lock and key right now. And they have no balls and they have no guts. And then they would never stand up. They want to just go on American radio and have a blib or a blurb on how it sucks to be stuck. And then comment on our politics, which really has nothing to do with them in their Canadian world. As far as I'm concerned, Canada borderlines on socialism, and basically they are a socialist country. So, and there's not that many people, like 30 million, 32 million people. That's nothing, man. California's got more people than Canada. California. So I'm not concerned with that. I'm concerned with the United States. And when I see these people out there who are hurting others because they have been driven into a frenzy, it makes me think that Frank Zappa was 100% right back in the 80s, saying the one major thing facing the United States of America now and the future is people's mental health. And there's not enough help out there. There's not. When you're down in the dumps, oh yeah, your workplace will say, oh, you're feeling bad. We have a program. And people don't want to do it because they don't want others knowing their business. And how do you know you're going to get some kind of a therapist who even knows anything, who's going to be good in their job? It's really hit and miss as per your personality. It's been my experience that when someone has a problem, it can be fixed, not by drugs, you know, but by involvement, doing something, going out and meeting people, going out, you need a job, go out and meet people. You need to make a friend, go out and meet people. I know COVID made things hard for a year, but there's really no excuse. After COVID 2.0 goes past us, and then maybe COVID 3.0 at some point, but it's not hard to, as long as you're genuine. There's a lot of disingenuous people out there, and that's Facebook to me is a clown show. And I'm on there. I don't even have a lot of friends on there. I got rid of a ton of people uh just because I don't care. You know what I mean? It is what it is. I have a little tiny group of people that I value, and we're friends aside from Facebook. Facebook can go away tomorrow. We're still going to be friends. I got friends on every continent, and I'll say I met them through Facebook. It was pure in its original intention of getting people together. Then it became a political control, a device to control people, putting people in Facebook jail. You're in Facebook jail because you posted a picture that they didn't like, went against their community standards. Community standards happens to be contemporary community standards, which happens to be what that community in of itself is willing to tolerate. So the only people that can bring up a actual objection to contemporary community standards would be that community if they are so offended. And then there's a way of doing it. It's not up to Facebook. They're a corporation. And if you want to get really technical, they're a communication company. They exist to communicate. They have a messenger. They have a phone. They have ways of communicating with each other. It's the people that create. Imagine if your phone company said, "Oh, we were listening to what you said and we don't like it, so we're going to shut your phone service off for 2 days, even though you're paying," right? So think about what you're not allowed to do in the Public Service Commission when it comes to communication companies, and what Facebook is doing, and also the monopoly that they're putting forth. Buying up all the other social media. I laugh at it. Instagram, you ever go on there? It's these bimbos who are just kind of showing. They don't even show their anything. I guess you have to pay. I guess you have to pay extra if you want to see some private parts. Which let me tell you, I'm going to be honest with everybody out there. Private parts aren't pretty, and it's not something you really even want to see. I think that the cool part is the stuff around it. then the thing itself, it's not exactly a walk in the park when it comes to seeing these things. You ever see a pretty penis? Pretty vagina? No, it's not pretty. It's not pretty at all, is it? You look at some sea monster or something going on there, man. So yeah, and people are charging, and then guys are paying for it. Men, that's men are pushovers. This is why men get turned into utilities. This is why they get used and abused and made fun of in insurance commercials and all these other stupid things, because you're on there chasing around some tail that you're never going to experience in all of your life. These people aren't putting themselves out there. They just want your money. Your money. And what are they giving you for it? What, to see some private parts? Ugh. I'd rather spend my money on anything else in the entire world than that. And it's just like Facebook. Facebook has made it where you have so many people out there that need attention. They put mainly women. They put themselves out there, right? They'll show little boobs or this or whatever, and guys are just, oh, you're so beautiful, oh, beautiful, you're beautiful. It's like sickening, and I never do that. I never tell someone they're beautiful on Facebook. I never say you're so hot. If someone does something good, I encourage them. I say you're on fire or whatever. I've done that, but it's not because they're a female or because of the way they look. It's because of something that they're doing is good, and that's like supporting your community, supporting each other, right? So, but to each his own. Am I offended by it? No. I'm like Plato, who invented the plate. I sit back and I observe. I like to watch what goes on. I'm a watcher. I'm a people watcher. Sometimes you're bored. The best place, and I mean the best place to people watch locally. Now, I'm not saying, if you're going to travel somewhere, there's some good people watching, but best place locally is obviously Walmart in any community, man, because you are going to see some stuff. You're going to see some stuff walking in. You're going to see some stuff walking out. And then you can get your thrill of people watching. That's like a overdose of people watching. Maybe 8, 9, 10 minutes. You're done. You're full. You got to move on from the people watching buffet. So, but when it comes down to just living your life, I mean, just find the things that make you happy and do them, as long as they're not inherently illegal, right? And stay away from things that frustrate you. Stay away from toxic people. Stay away from toxic anybody. Masculine toxic, female toxic, whatever. Some people just don't want to live and be happy, and they want to just destroy other people's lives. They're out there. Stay away from them. They're not going to do you any good. They're not going to help you in any way. Oh, yeah, I know guys who love abuse. Seth. I know people who love abuse, who need to have someone there abusing them. They think that they don't have any worth because they've been brought up into this world, through this world, to think that that's all that they are, that if they're not a utility, they don't have a use, and then they're useless. Oh, your kid's grown, your relationship is over. The women move on. They get divorced. They get half or more of everything, plus the house. They get to stay cozy while the guy gets out into the street, into the cold, into the rain, into the snow, living in some hovel, if you can afford it, right? Or hopping from hotel to hotel. What kind of life is that? I have friends who work in hospice care centers. How many men are laying there in the bed dying by themselves, dying alone? No family, nobody around them, because they've been cast out and then trash talked. How many people do that when a relationship is over, and then the guy has to leave, and the woman's like, oh, he's no good, and he did this and he's that. Still paying for the show, but he's no good. And I've seen it happen. So it isn't like once or twice. This is very common, and it's something that's supported by the government because they're happy to support people who do this, and whatever happened to, like locally, right, where I live up in Ithaca right now. I'm not in town, but where I live, used to live anyway, I'm moving out of Ithaca. It comes down to this: the responsibility lies on the person who does the deed, right? And you need to be responsible for your kids and the people around you and that type of thing. You need to find other solutions instead of the government stepping in and just paying for people who have multiple children, but they have no responsibility to those children or themselves. It's a real weird gray area because it's not like you can go and put a stop to it. You can't put a stop to the birth. You can't put a stop to their ill behavior. It comes down to education. Education is key because information is key. But if you don't have the proper education, especially if you're out there breeding out of control and you get on welfare, and then your kids are on welfare because you're on welfare, and then you have no responsibility for yourself and for them. And what are they going to see as they're growing up? They're going to see someone who is supported by the system and think it's perfectly okay. You have a lot of that out there, a lot. So there needs to be more responsibility. And locally, like even in the health department, when I was fighting for someone's rights a few years ago, when they were hanging out with a group of druggies, and they have a program for heroin addicts, or if you're on drugs, they'll actually give you a prescription for stuff so you can have these things, right? That's Ithaca. So I said to this guy who was the head of the health department, "What do you have in place for prevention?" Oh, well, we really don't have anything right now in prevention. And he agreed with me that it all starts with prevention. You're going to jump to it and say, okay, this person's on heroin. So you're going to put a safe injection site up so they can go there and then hand some person who's behind the desk their heroin so they can weigh it out or look at the purity and put it in a needle and give it back to them so these guys can inject it. You're involving the government in a process they have no business being in, especially with something highly illegal like heroin. And it's not really a drug people can ever function on. You're not going to take heroin and go to work, right? That type of thing. And there's a whole area there that needs to be fixed. But prevention and the children, what message are you giving the kids by saying all this? And especially, Ithaca is a college community. You have Cornell University, Ithaca College. If I was a parent of one of those children who were in Ithaca College or young adult, and Cornell University, whatever, I'd say I'm panicked in fear that the second my child is struggling in school, that they're just going to go downtown and hook up with one of these groups and the same day walk out with a prescription of Xanax or something and move on to heavier things even after that. So it needs to be fixed. And so, when I was talking with the health department, I said, well, do you have programs with the local gyms, Ithaca Fitness Center, any of that? If someone comes to you and they say they've got these issues, if they're depressed, instead of someone comes in and sees you're a psychologist, oh, I'm depressed and whatever, they love to start pumping drugs into people. Why not saying, well, what about working out? What about, volunteering, doing something important, doing something important with your life that you can have more of a purpose instead of turning to drugs. Mainly people turn to drugs because they're bored. I hate to say they're bored. And then they get hooked on drugs, or if they're in pain, plenty of people in pain get on painkillers, and they can't shake the painkillers, right? There needs to be alternatives, and there needs to be drug alternatives that don't get you addicted, that are an opium based or some kind of synthetic based. But these companies love it because it's repeat business. If you think for a second that these pharmaceutical companies don't just sit there and say, we love this money, they do. Look at their profits. Go into Forbes. Look at their profits. Look at what they make. And then you'll understand something more about that industry. And it's just too much power for a corporation to have over someone's head. Too much power, because you are the one in medical need and they're the ones who are standing over you that are going to mitigate your pain when your pain needs to be, especially if you're depressed or something. I mean, when you're depressed, it's the mind's way of telling you there's a problem. It's not, the problem doesn't get solved from a pill. The pill might alleviate some of the feelings, but it doesn't solve the problem, right? So you want to solve the problem and have responsibility for that. Anyway, I was going to read you an article about Meghan Markle, who was charging $15 for a 107-second children's audiobook. And now people are calling it a vanity project and they're slamming her hard. Why does she need that money? She's not donating it and she's a horrible person. So good. So good. See, Americans have lost their lust, if they ever had it, with those two freaks. I will say good riddance. I like the Prince Harry, who is naked in Vegas, falling into the pool, drunk and laughing, because that's the thing I want to see. I don't want to see the one being controlled by that woman who actually has him wrapped around her little finger. It's pretty sad, but sad for him. And the guy's got mommy problems to begin with. So I'll say a prayer for you, Prince Harry. I say a prayer from the Buddha. Buddha said, ha 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 ha. That's how I end the show. This is the Chinese fat laughing Buddha, not the Indian Buddha. The Chinese fat people mistake the two Buddhas. You got the one Buddha from India who is like the knowledgeable dude, whatever, who got all the sayings, man, lived what, fourth, fifth century BC. Then you have the laughing Buddha, who's a whole big fat laughing guy in China. So that's my favorite. The fat laughing Buddha. I will see you guys next week on this here show. United Public Radio Network, the Red Pill News. Take the red pill, take the red pill, take the red pill. And I'll see you next week on this show. UPRN Talkradio.com, 107.5, New Orleans 104.7, and Past Christian Sold.